that took multiple attempts were Edith Cavell, south of Jasper. That's the big one.
That's the really big one.
I ran out of daylight the first time. And the two other attempts after that, snowstorm came in. Once was in July and once was in August and blew me off that mountain. Like, that is a really nasty place to be.
Oh, it's a big one for sure.
Welcome to the Wilderness Wavelength Podcast.
Let's get into it. This is another episode of the Wilderness Wavelength Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. My name is George. Scott Sunderwald back on the show. Scott,
hey, good to be here.
Should you just be the permanent co-host?
Please.
Yeah.
But you have to up my pay.
Pay, right, yeah. I was thinking about...
here instead of 3.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was thinking about that a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, Scott's like just such a great part of the podcast. Like, I don't know if it changes you being a co-host as what you are now, because you're here most episodes anyways, but...
Well, and the scotch is free, so that's good.
Perfect.
That keeps me coming back.
Yeah. The guest tonight, someone that you've been promoting for a long time, trying to get on the show. Do you want to introduce?
Yeah. I'm happy to introduce Robert Lindsay here tonight. We've talked about this actually for months, getting you on here, Robert, so we're really glad you're here. So little background about Robert. If you're into scrambling, and if our listeners don't know what scrambling is, picture something between intense hiking in the mountains to mountaineering, right in the middle. So you're using your hands and feet, and you're bagging peaks, but you don't necessarily have your ice axe and ropes and all of that. Mm-hmm. Robert is the local expert. I don't know anyone in this region, bar none, and I'll even throw Jasper in the mix, that knows the local peaks better than Robert.
Wow.
And so I've been watching him for years. We bump into each other every now and then and chat. He's helped me out too on a couple routes. Usually when I come back and say, I almost died, what did I do wrong? He's like, yeah, you should have turned here. So it's great to have Robert here. I have 2 wishes. Number one, that Robert would finally write a book, because I would buy it immediately. We'll talk about scrambles in the Canadian Rockies. I brought the guide in here, but it's far short of what should be here for this area. And if he's not going to write a book, then we got to figure out how to siphon off his knowledge, hook some wires up to his brain, and download it. Yeah.
No pressure, Robert.
No pressure. But no, he's a wealth of knowledge. Welcome here, Robert. Really looking forward to tonight.
Well, this is my first podcast, and twinge a nerve here and there, but I'll try and be sociable.
Right on.
How long you been in the Hinton area, Robert?
I moved here in 95.
Okay.
So
what
I've
brought
been
you out
here a long time. Well, mainly the mountains.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a job offer.
Okay.
And a girl.
Yeah.
It's always
there was kind of a package deal.
Yeah. Right, yeah. The mountains made you stick around.
Well, the girlfriend sure didn't. So it has to be the mountains.
And then what got you into scrambling? Like Scott said, you're like scrambling like full time. Like what's the passion? Where'd that come from?
Well, it was more like a long evolution. I always used to vacation in the mountains with my dad, who is a game warden in northern Alberta. Yeah. And every summer, we go into the Alberta and BC Rockies and do the vacation thing, and sometimes do little hikes. And the passion for the mountains was always there. But it really picked up when my dad moved to northern BC. Yeah. And I used to go with him on wild mountain goat hunting trips.
Oh, cool.
And when you've scrambled the peaks in northern BC, it's like it was a taste of sheer heaven.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me to this day. So there was always that attraction for mountains, but it kind of evolved from doing more trail hikes when I first started out as a young adult, and then evolving into backpacking. And from there, then what do you know? The peaks just keep pulling you up and up and up. And next thing you know, I think in the social media age here, that's when I really started doing major scrambles.
Why is that?
I don't know. I guess it was just where I was at, because when you're backpacking, you have all the gear on your back.
Yeah.
You're going home to a little tent at night. But when you're scrambling, every single time you wind up back in your own bed, and
Unless something goes wrong.
unless something goes wrong. But it's actually never happened to me. Like I found myself running out of daylight or getting off route a little bit, like what happened last winter on Mount Greenock. Lost in the fog there. But I've always been able to walk myself out of trouble. But I've always carried extra gear just in case. You never know. The only time I had to overnight in the bush was actually when I was working for forestry. I was a wildland firefighter, and we were up in Manning doing fire suppression work, and the chopper dropped us off in the morning in the middle of nowhere and was supposed to pick us up that evening, but a big snowstorm came in out of nowhere. So we had to wait it out there in 3 or 4 inches of snow, huddling around the fire. That was the only time I got caught overnight.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's good. That's good. I mean, for me, I love scrambling, but I take route finding very serious because it can go from a benign, enjoyable, sunny experience in the mountains to complete terror if you get off route, especially if you don't have your gear. I am a rock climber as well, done some mountaineering too. But when you're going scrambling, you're not necessarily thinking that you might be in that sort of level of exposure and, praying for your life. It's happened a couple times where you get off route and suddenly you're in a really hairy, scary spot, right? Have you ever had those?
Well, and I mean, it can happen, but I guess everyone has a different strategy as far as scrambling goes. The traditional method is, get up to crack of dawn and check your GPS files, make sure you're en route the whole way. And me, I'm more, as you know, by the seat of my pants. I've never, I think only once have I ever looked up any information online about a peak.
Wow.
Like I'll look at the peak and decide, okay, well, this is probably a good route, what they call a line, right, to the summit, and go for it. And I would say probably 75% of the time I'm successful on the first attempt. But as you know, you can try a route and then you get stonewalled. You hit a cliff or it just becomes too dangerous. So you turn around, you come back, and you try again on a different route on a different day. So every single peak I've tried, most of them I've got on the second attempt if I didn't get it on the first time. The only 2 peaks that took multiple attempts were Edith Cavell, south of Jasper. That's the big one.
That's a really big one.
I ran out of daylight the first time. And the 2 other attempts after that, snowstorm came in. Once was in July and once was in August and blew me off that mountain. Like, that is a really nasty place to be.
Oh, it's a big one for sure. There's the east route and a west route up there. Do you remember which one you took?
Yeah, well, the east route is typically what they consider mountaineering.
Yeah.
Yeah, like some people rope up to go up that section. The scramble route is on the western ridge. So you have to take the Tonquin Valley Trail up the Astoria River.
Yeah.
And about 4 kilometers down, you cut to the south into what they call the Verdant Pass area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll take you to the backside of Edith Cavell. And then it's just a very steep, long scree walk to the top of the ridge. And once you're on top of the ridge, the peak doesn't look very far away, but it is. It's still about another hour and a half
Wow.
to the summit. It's a really long day.
Yeah.
That one and Sphinx Mountain south of Hinton here were probably the 2 longest days I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I brought in tonight Scrambles in the Canadian Rockies by Alan Kane. I'm sure you're very familiar with this book.
That's the Bible.
That's the Bible. But sadly, this Bible only has 7 peaks devoted to this area. And I'm guessing you've probably, I can't even guess, you've probably done dozens in this area that aren't in this book. And I don't even know where to find that information. I know summitpost.org. I don't know if you guys click on that. They've got climbing in there. Some of them are rope climbs, mountaineering routes, but there's also scramble routes in there. So you can go online, summitpost.org. But as far as a book that kind of does the Northern Rockies here would just be fantastic. Have you ever thought of? I know every time I see you, I tell you about it. But are you considering it yet?
Well, maybe I might have to consider that now that you mention it. I know there's scramble books available for David Thompson country down near west of Nordic.
Yep.
But you're right. I don't think I've ever heard of a scramble book for this area.
You should
other than that one, which
you should do it, man.
Are you writing so after you do a scramble, do you go home and then write what the day was like and the path you took?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like Scott was saying, most of the posts on Hinton hikers seem to be my scrambles. So every single time I do a trip, I post what conditions are like and what time I started. And
do you also take paper copy and take a highlighter and kind of mark the route? Do you have like a record of that, or it's just all in your head at this point?
No, it's all in my head.
Oh, geez.
People are always asking me for GPS tracks, and I don't know. I don't use the GPS.
Don't get hit by a bus, man. We got to get that down on paper somehow because, you've got years and years of knowledge there for sure.
Yeah, that was one question I had was like apps. Do you use any apps or anything like that, or that's none of that either?
No, nothing. I'm totally by the seat of my pants.
Yeah. Wow.
So I'll carry a little compass just to kind of check my what direction I'm heading if I'm not sure, like if it's overcast.
Yeah.
So I'll do that once in a while, but that's about it.
Do you have a peak count, like how many you've done?
No idea. And most of the peaks around here I've done multiple times.
Yeah.
So
you got a favorite one you go back to regularly then?
Well, there's several scrambles in the area here I do pretty well every year. Roche Padre, Roche Miette, Brule Mountain.
Yeah.
Old Man, Roche Bonhomme near Jasper, Moreau, Cinquefoil. It's like a circuit.
Yeah.
Luscar and Leland down near Catamount are two reasonably easy favorites too.
You also did Mount Mackenzie down there, which I always look at and love to do it. And it looks from the ground like there's a massive cliff there. And you said you did it without ropes. Were you... I want to get into this a bit. Like, what's your comfort level for exposure? You must regularly get in places like if you fall, you're done, right?
Quite regularly on those wild scrambles. Yeah, like I've occasionally taken a GoPro, mounted it on the helmet, and recorded some of those ridges I've been on. And there's several places where if you fall, you die.
Because even Tripoli, I've done that a few times. That's for folks who don't know, it's on the Cardinal Divide. A really, really cool spine on there, but it feels like it drops half a kilometer to your left and right on that one ridge there. And I prefer to rope up. I know you don't have to, but you can trip falling down the stairs, right? And you'll just sprain an ankle. You trip there and you're not coming home. So those are the debates, right? Did you ever get in spots where you're like, oh my goodness, I got to turn around?
Well, I'm sure everyone hits that point where it's kind of like, do I go on from this point or do I just turn around? And a lot of times I will go on, but a lot of times I'll sit back and, well, it's kind of late in the day. I'm feeling a little tired. I'm feeling a little hungry, or I'm solo. Maybe I shouldn't be risking my life this much. So time to turn around. Oh, and Tripoli, actually, you can bypass that spine section. It just becomes a scree walk up.
Okay.
Like if you walk at the base of the cliff on the eastern side. Yeah. The first scree ravine you come to, it's about a couple kilometers up, 1.5 kilometers up.
Yeah.
And then you can just head up to the ridge top.
Yeah, I think I came down that one actually.
Yeah, most people would just say.
I do like the spine though. Like if I'm roped up, I go from being chicken shit scared to just full of courage just because I trust the gear, right? But you don't always want to be packing a short rope and all your quick draws and your protection for that sort of thing.
What's your gear look like going on a scramble then? Like what's in your backpack normally?
Well, you see my backpack there?
Yeah.
That's pretty well how full it is on a
65
typical
liter thing or something probably, or 50 liter?
It might be more like 80 liters.
Okay.
Yeah. In the winter, it's heavier. It's probably around 35 pounds.
Yeah.
Because you're carrying ice axe and
Yeah.
traction aids and that type of thing.
So you are carrying ice axe. I was going to ask you if you're doing crampons, ice axe, because folks, you might be thinking, well, this sounds more like a summertime episode. No, Robert is scrambling all through the winter as well. So that's,
Wild.
that takes it to a whole new level. We often say a summertime scramble covered in ice turns into a mountaineering expedition, that same route, right? It changes dramatically. Right? You know what it's like just to slip on the sidewalk when it's icy. Now imagine something that's deep in snow and a pitch. So you've got an ice axe, you've got your crampons, you got your compass, no GPS.
Nope.
What do you got for survival gear if you have to spend the night? You got your hot shots or just a lighter, or what are you doing there?
A knife, 3 sources of ignition, not just one. Some people carry a lighter. It's like, no, that's not good enough. Lighters fail or run out of fluid. So
Or
3
freeze,
sources of ignition.
I like that plan. That's a good
And lots of people think, oh, I have no problem lighting a fire. Well, that's in the summer when everything's dry. You try lighting that fire when the bush has been soaking wet for a couple of days. If you're out there and it rains, everything's going to be soaking wet. And that's when it rains here, it gets really cold. So you'd better be able to light a fire when everything's damp.
Yeah.
And a simple thing like just carrying some fire starters with you. That could make the difference between lighting a fire successfully or not. And if you're ever stranded out there, lighting a fire means life or death.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I remember getting stuck in a lightning storm with my family. I won't say what mountain it is so I won't get in trouble by a certain park service. But lightning came out, hail, soaking wet rain. The kids were soaked to the bone. They were really young. And we were on the verge of hypothermia. And I was like, I don't care at this point about the laws. I got to make sure my family gets down alive. We got into the subalpine because we were up above the tree line. We came down, built a roaring fire, dried everybody out, cheered everybody up, and carried on, right? So as you say, the ability to make a fire is absolutely essential. Yeah.
Every year I hear about people somehow getting lost, and they had no survival training and no survival gear. Like even something like just carrying a lighter could have meant the difference between living and dying. And in the winter they're out there and they kind of find shelter and they're freezing to death. And it's like one of the world's best insulators is everywhere out there. It's snow. Build a little snow shelter.
That's right. Yeah.
So that could make the difference between survival or not. So, but yeah, you're going back to my pack. Sorry. People that venture into the backcountry a fair bit, I recommend survival training, which you offer, right, Scott?
Yeah. I've been a survival instructor for many years. Yeah.
So people have asked me about that, and I said, I'm pretty sure Scott Sunderwald does that. You should ask him. So survival training, and, like I said, 3 sources of ignition, a fire starter, a knife, a space blanket. Absolutely crucial. Because I tell you, that time we got stranded in the forest near Manning overnight when it was snowing, well, you build a big fire. Well, that keeps your front warm while your back's freezing. So it's like you're rotating on a spit all night. You're constantly turning around, warming up the back. Well, then your front's freezing. So you're just doing circles all night, just trying to stay warm. It'll, I suppose, keep you alive, but you're not getting much sleep. So just a simple thing like just building a crude lean-to, hanging up that survival blanket behind you, that reflects so much heat to the backside of your body, away, not facing the fire, that you build a bed of spruce boughs, basic survival training, right? And you might be able to get some sleep.
Absolutely. Well, and the space blanket keeps you dry too.
That too.
Like if you've got a downpour, and I don't care if it's July in the Alpine, you could die of hypothermia in the middle of the summer if it's pouring rain, hail, and you're soaked to the bone, right? So that little space blanket at least is is a waterproof barrier between you and the sky, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure you're aware of it too, but you go up some of these peaks, and it's not as bad here as in places like Banff, but like most of the peaks you go up, you don't usually encounter people on them. I could walk naked and no one would ever know it. But I think it was like 4 or 5 peaks where you might run into a handful of people.
Oh, yeah.
And probably the busiest I've seen for a major mountain is Roche Bonhomme, probably because it's so close to Jasper.
Mm-hmm.
But when I go up that one in the summer, I'm meeting all these people going up or coming down the mountain. They're in shorts, some are in runners, or sometimes even Crocs. No backpack, no water, no food, no jacket, no sweater. And it's just like, you guys get up there and a snowstorm can come in July or August, as we know.
Yeah.
And it's going to get really cold up there just like that. And if you don't have at least a raincoat and a warm sweater, you're going to be in trouble right away.
Yeah. Yeah, your clothing is the first line of defense, absolutely. The layers and...
So you got a few layers of clothing in the bag then too? Regular?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even on a 30-degree day, not a cloud in the sky, I always have a sweater and a raincoat.
Wow.
Always. And that saved my butt more than once.
Yeah.
I was up on the Hoff Range near Rock Lake one time, and right near the summit, this long gray-looking cloud, like there's like maybe 4 or 5 of them in the whole sky. Yeah. Well, it floated over, and it stalled on top of that ridge, and it started to hail. And I tell you, just like that, it went from 28 degrees to not much above 0. And all this hail was piling up on the ground like 2 or 3 inches deep. And it was really stinking cold. And I was just thinking, if I didn't have my sweater and raincoat, I would have been hypothermic really, really quickly.
Yeah. And then are you hauling food in that bag with you too? Like food for a couple days? Or?
Well, no. Typically... well, I guess some people have like a big supply of food and they can graze all day, but I usually just carry one meal. And even if my scramble is 12 hours, I have that habit of having a big breakfast and only eating once during the trip. So I eat when I get home.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get to like the top of the mountain, are you like hanging out there for a few hours to soak it all in, or do you get to the top and kind of tag and head back down? Or
well, especially in the winter, I'm usually arriving at the mountain top when the sun's setting.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like you don't have time to hang around.
Yeah. Do you have a list of mountains that you're doing this year? Like,
yep, absolutely.
What's on the list?
There's the favorites that I just mentioned before.
Yeah.
And last year, especially, I was trying to get in some more what we call virgin peaks, like summits I'd never been to before.
Yeah.
Like our Red Cap, we did that one, me and a friend of mine. What was the other one? I did a twofer of Greg Mountain and Harold Mitchell, south of Hinton here.
Okay.
I got them both in one go.
Yeah.
Those are virgin peaks.
Cool.
Yeah, see that stuff, man. You got to get it down. I tell you, I'm going to buy your book. If you put that on the table, I'll buy it right now. So we need to see that stuff, man. I was going to ask you about close calls because everybody loves close calls. Couple here. Falling, bears, storms, lightning. Getting off route, getting lost, hypothermia. Those are just a few. Sprained ankle.
All of the above.
All of the above. So
me,
give us a couple. Give us a couple stories. Give us some highlights of close calls that come to mind.
Well, me and
we'll get you to get your mic there.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Me and most of the scramblers I know online have had close calls like that, and I think the longer you do it, just like anything, the more chances are that something's going to go wrong once in a while. Sometimes things just go sideways. I've fallen 3 different times. I've managed to escape serious injury to this point, but scrapes and bruises, that type of thing. But
so when you're saying falling, is that like sort of a, twice the size of your height of your body, or were you tumbling, cartwheeling down the scree, or what did that look like?
Well, on the eastern side of Brule Mountain, I was trying to go up there off the there isn't really a scramble route. I just thought, I might be able to get up here, but I ended up falling. Well, I call it falling. It was more like sliding down a ski slope for about 20 feet. So a little scraped up, but no big deal. The longest fall I think I had was Mount Chettaman. That's my nemesis right now. I've tried 3 times to get that one too and been unsuccessful. The last time I was up there, I was making my way down these moss-covered ledges in the forest. They were fairly steep, and I thought something was secure there. I stepped on it. Well, it gave way and went shooting down about 20 feet and landed in some soft moss at the bottom. So I was okay, but I did open up my elbow.
Yeah.
I caught something on the way down, so it was kind of ripped open for about 4 or 5 inches. Not really deep, thankfully.
Right. So you're often hiking solo, and you know, I think about that if I'm ever solo, like a sprained ankle's bad enough if you're with somebody else, but if you're by yourself up in the Alpine or, you know, heaven forbid a broken ankle or knee, does that cross your mind? You play the what if game? Like, what are you going to do?
Well, you know, I'm kind of bad for, you know, like telling people, you should have safety training. You should have a minimal amount of overnight gear in your bag. You should tell people where you're going and approximately what time you're going to be back. Right. And I was a little lax on that. And then I had a friend scrambler fall about a year and a half ago now, and almost die. And I knew her. I'd scrambled with her. So after that, it was kind of like, okay, I think I better tighten up my safety procedures here. If it happened to her, it could happen to me. You know. So now I try and make the point of telling people where I'm going. And typically when I have an objective peak in mind, I usually have a backup. So I'll mention that too. You know, because sometimes I'll get there and I'll think, conditions don't look good, or maybe there's grizzlies around or something. So there's an alternate target.
Yeah.
So,
because I think a lot of people think, okay, it's scrambling, it's not that hardcore. I think I know of more scrambling deaths than I do rock climbing deaths, because people are roped in when you're climbing. So even though the terrain can be more severe, the punishment of falling on a scramble when you got nothing, you know, can be deadly, right? We've had people die on Utopia. I don't know if Roche Mayette. I know people have gotten off route Roche Mayette considerably, but I've gotten in some pretty scary situations scrambling, more so than I have mountaineering with ropes, you know, because there at least it's like if things get really bad, I can create an anchor, lose some money by leaving gear on the cliff and rappel down and get home. But you don't have that luxury when you're scrambling without gear, right?
Well, I guess solo, the stakes are higher too. You're correct, you know. But like I say, having a little bit of gear in place, you know, like poles. You know, I always tell people, hike with poles for goodness sakes. You know, I never use them on the ascent. They're just sitting in my pack, but always on the descent. And scrambling is actually like mountaineering that way. Probably 90% of the accidents or sprained ankles or falls happen on the descent.
Right.
You know, so if you have a set of poles, 2 poles, not just one, you know, you slip or you fall, your poles will catch you. Sometimes they'll bend or they'll break, but they've saved you. You know, that's happened many times, you know. So with all the solo stuff I do, it's kind of like, yeah, you could fall, you could sprain your ankle, but poles are a critical safety feature.
Yeah.
You know?
And I always find it's easier to climb up. It's more instinctual to climb up than it is down. So that's how you get yourself in trouble. I've been there, right? Where you're just like, oh, this doesn't feel too bad. And you're not looking down. You're just going up, up, up. It's like this, you know, stairway to heaven. And suddenly you look down and be like, oh my goodness, I got to turn around and I got to down climb this, you know. And if I fall, I'm done, right? So yeah, you can really get yourself in tricky spots that way.
Well, I'm like you. I don't have too much of an issue going up steep stuff, but I don't like coming down it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Are you worried about avalanche? Like, you come across avalanche issues?
Regularly. In the winter, I always tell people you should get avalanche training.
Yeah.
You know, and in the winter, you got to have an ice axe.
Yeah.
Other than falling, the closest I've come to being badly injured while scrambling is glissading, which for people who don't know is sliding down your butt on a snow patch.
Okay.
You know, I've sometimes slid down nice soft snow, and then you hit some spots it's like they're ice, and you pick up speed right away. And then, of course, the patch will all of a sudden disappear, and you get shot out onto the street. So near injury a few times like that. So it's kind of like, in general, you don't glissade without an ice axe.
Yeah.
So.
Scott mentioned too with like the dangers, like any animal encounters when you're out
many.
There?
Yeah. Around here, like the mine sites south of Hinton have a large number of ungulates.
Yeah.
So with that comes a large number of predators. I've run into wolves, cougars, and there's a lot of grizzly back there. It's certain areas, it's pretty well almost a guarantee you're going to see a grizzly somewhere along the way.
They've always been well behaved for you, or have you had any incidents?
No, every single time I've encountered a grizzly, it's like they're, I realize they're an apex predator and they eat meat, and I'm made out of meat, and most humans are made out of meat. But I find grizzlies to be really shy and reclusive. They typically don't want anything to do with you. Mm-hmm. But, you have to keep in mind that this is an incredibly powerful predator. You better have an enormous amount of respect for it. And I almost cringe when I see people on social media. They run into a grizzly, and what do? Instead of immediately turning around and leaving, they pull out their camera and start filming it. Oh, hi, Grizz, and they start talking to it or whatever. It's like, no, you see a grizzly, you turn around and you leave without running.
Absolutely.
That should be the proper method of dealing with grizzlies.
Yeah. So are you taking bear spray with you then, or?
Well, I never used to carry bear spray ever. And even after I was charged by a black bear, a mother black bear, just defending her cubs.
Yeah.
That's another long story there. But even after that, I never carried bear spray. But followed twice by 2 cougars.
Oh, wow.
That was really eerie. I did not like that. Bears in this too. But these cougars.
Two of them. Yeah,
there was once the cougar was just following me. Like, he didn't get very close. It's like, 100 meters, maybe 75 meters at the most.
Yeah.
But I would turn around and look back, and he was there. He was just following me. Wasn't being aggressive or anything. I think he was just being curious. But then he disappeared, and you can't see those things.
That's a bad sign, man.
And I kept walking, and I turned back and looked, and he's gone now. Well, then I looked back a few minutes later, and then he reappeared. And that was like for 10 minutes or so, and it was just eerie.
Yeah.
I seen those things jump, and man, they can 50, 60 foot span, one jump.
Yeah, 30 foot leap from a standstill with the cougar and 17 feet vertical. So yeah, they can really jump. Yeah.
The wife just brought up today, she said we got to do an episode on cougars. So that'll be coming up in the future, hopefully. Robert, you mentioned a few things about social media. So I was going to dig into our, we have a podcast question of the week. And the question this week is, who inspires you to get out into the wilderness? Is there someone like that you follow on social media, like a hiker or a scrambler that maybe you're following on YouTube or anything like that you're watching their videos like, I got to go do this? Or
not really.
You're the influencer.
I guess I'm my own worst influence. As far as that goes, because I got a number of hardcore scrambler friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
So some of them I've actually never met in person, but I follow their exploits, and it's kind of like they're doing peaks that I would like to do at some point, but most of them seem to be in the southern part of the Alberta Rockies here.
Okay.
So
I'm assuming too, when you're posting, like we mentioned, Hinton hikers and outdoor enthusiasts, when you're posting on there, a lot of people message you with questions about like the hikes and the peaks.
Surprisingly not. No, I not very often do I get an information request.
Huh.
You think I would be, but rarely.
Huh. There was a few messages that came in. Tara said her dad and her kids inspire her. Blaine said my wife. Telvin said my own frontier, which I think is a YouTuber that does that. Trisha said my adventure buddy, her dog, and Crystal, her coworker. So Scott, anyone that inspires you to get out into the wilderness? like YouTube or?
Well, he's sitting right here.
Yeah,
No, Robert inspires me to scramble more. I need to do more. I do like to have a route first, though. Like I'm getting too old for going sight unseen. Even though we're probably about the same age, Robert, but I do like to know where I'm going because I've had a few scary moments getting off route, and I want to come home, right? So that's why you got to write your book.
Or maybe carry a GPS and
Or
then
carry a GPS, yeah.
give people my GPS tracks if they're interested.
Yeah, that would be the way to do it. Just start logging that stuff and printing off a bunch of hard copy maps, even with the highlighter, and say, this is more or less the route I took, you know. I think that'd be fantastic.
I'm going to have to look into that a little more. Then.
Yeah.
I think you will.
I think it'll be a hit. You know,
it'll fly off the shelves, man.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Because, like I said, this scrambles in the Canadian Rockies is a disservice to our area here. Like 90% of that book has nothing to do with our area in the Northern Rockies. So
what does that book have then? It's got
a lot of
routes
Banff
for you,
and
where to
Waterton and
start.
everything. Yeah, like Jasper, few, but even Jasper's pretty sparse. And half of the stuff that Robert was talking about tonight's not even in there. I'm curious because we had Tara on and Renee Fair talking about Passport to the Peaks with the scrambles and hikes up in the Grand Cache area,
Yeah.
Wilmore. Do you get into that neck of the woods much, or are you mostly down here and in Jasper?
Well, usually about once per summer I go and scramble some peak around the Grand Cache area. Last year it was Louis. Been up there a couple times. Let's see, I've been up Mount Hamel a couple times. Stern Mountain. I was trying to do a twofer of Lightning Ridge, but the weather was too bad. So I was able to get Stern, but not Lightning. So
Yeah, because you can hit Stern and Lightning in a day if you do it right. Is that correct?
It's would be quite a long day.
Yeah.
I counted the time it took from the junction off of the Lightning Peak trail to get to Stern, and it was about 45 minutes one way. So if you want to do a twofer, it's going to be an hour and a half extra. Instead of just going to Lightning Ridge. So, but Lightning Ridge, even from Stern, looked like it's going to be a long day.
Yeah. And your knees are holding up good with all this?
Well, they're okay. I mean, the doctor told me a while ago I had a bit of osteoarthritis in my right knee, but so far it's not holding me back too much.
Yeah.
Do you have like a training regimen you do like to get set up for a mountain, or just like
No, not really.
no, just get out there?
Just mountains themselves kind of keep you fit.
Yeah. Any idea what the highest peak you've been on?
Well, I'm pretty sure it would be Edith Cavell at
Okay.
this point.
Yeah. And that was like, how long is that a hike?
The vertical elevation gain for Edith Cavell is somewhere around 2,000 meters.
Okay.
And it stands at 3263 meters above sea level, I believe.
Yeah, I'm more a feet kind of guy, but yeah, it's way up there. It's one of the bigger ones we got for sure.
And that's a day hike then? Like you could do that in a day?
Well, it's a really long day. I did it really quickly after my first 3 failed attempts.
Yeah.
The fourth time was the charm, but it still took 11 hours and 20 minutes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't stop moving during that whole trip. That was really fast.
Yeah.
If you're going to try for that one, allow probably at least 14 hours,
Wow.
15 hours. So, I mean, people have done it faster, but,
Yeah.
it's a long day.
People have also died on there, so make sure you know where you're going.
Yeah. 2 people. There's a couple that died on there.
Yeah.
Like 3 years ago, 4 years
Yeah.
ago.
And then Mount Utopia, I think a father's son died on that one scrambling.
Oh, actually, I heard about that. It was a father and his son scrambling, and
Yep.
the father fell to his death right on the crux,
Yep.
which is that really knife ridge part below the summit.
Mm-hmm.
And you fall off either side. It's not good.
Yeah, exactly. It comes at a very, very high price. That's really tragic stuff.
Are you finding logbooks on a lot of these summits, like on the top? Like, is there cairns there, up there? Like, the people have been recording their climbs?
Well, sometimes there is, but lately it seems like if there's any registers, I'm bringing them up.
Yeah.
And then the ones I place, sometimes people, like you should put a rock on top at least
Right.
to make sure it doesn't get blown away.
Yeah.
But I think people just sign and put it back and
Yeah.
don't do that, and it blows away.
Okay.
The registers off the several of the peaks I've been up over the winter here were all missing. Cinquefoil was missing. Brule Mountain was missing. Mount Greenock. Yeah, they're all gone.
And I think if I recall, you went up Mount Mackenzie, and the last time somebody had climbed that mountain was like long time ago. So it's not like you're getting to the top of these and someone was up there just a week or two ago, like a couple years or something on Mount Mackenzie, right? So, and that's the beauty of the Northern Rockies. So many of these are just unexplored, underappreciated mountains. Like,
Well, I cringe a little bit because people are telling me they're scrambling the peaks in around Banff, like Cascade. This one guy posted that he stopped counting after 200, the number of people that were on that mountain going for the summit that particular day.
Wow.
Like I said, around here, most peaks you never encounter anybody. There's like
No.
4 or 5 peaks you might encounter a handful of people. That's it. But
Yeah.
in the Southern Rockies, hundreds.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see hundreds of people on a typical day.
it's the same with rock climbing. Like, I go rock climbing on these pitches here in the Northern Rockies. I've never had to wait in line or had anybody climbing up behind me, and that's a blessing of this area. It's so remote and wild and wonderful. We talked about close calls. We talked about falling. We talked about bears. Storms and lightning. That's scary stuff, because lightning on the mountain, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but lightning loves to strike mountains, right? It's trying to get grounded as quickly as it can, and it's much easier to hit a mountaintop than it is to travel through space down to the ground. Have you had any issues with that before? Your hair standing on end?
Yeah. Actually, it was on Tripoli a few years ago that everything started buzzing.
Yeah.
Like my watch was buzzing. I pull out my camera, it was buzzing. Finally, my pole started buzzing, and then I was like, okay, time to get off here now.
Yeah.
So, and it's been like that. Utopia, that happened too. It wasn't quite as bad, and thankfully it passed.
Yeah.
Like you're on Tripoli, you can often you're on the Crux Ridge there. It's not too big a deal to just head down the eastern side if you find a safe route down. Not too big a deal. But Utopia, no real fast escape off there. So
Yeah. No, I've climbed with my daughters when they got this long hair, and suddenly it's just standing straight up, and I'm like, okay, this is a bad sign, right? Yeah, all that static electricity. So I think we often forget about how dangerous lightning is. I've been struck before, so I'm...
you're kidding.
No.
What happened there?
I was actually carrying an umbrella, of all things. This was
Lightning rod.
Yeah, and it came down the umbrella, and the jolt went right through the wooden handle and threw me across the road. So
Good God.
I have a healthy respect for that. So yeah. Yeah.
Shocking.
What about getting off route, getting lost, hypothermia, any of those? You mentioned your wildfire experience, but you've always managed to find your way back.
Well, the good thing is when you're moving, you're usually generating plenty of heat.
Yeah.
But, I always tell people you got to plan, in case something goes sideways. Like if you break your ankle,
Yeah.
well, you can't move. So you can't move, you can't stay warm. So what's the backup plan?
Yeah.
Hopefully, if it does happen, you're in an area where there's at least wood to burn. But it could happen on a high mountain ridge where there's nothing.
Yeah.
There was actually one really well-known scrambler on social media there. He got stuck overnight on Utopia. Did you ever hear that story?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was a few years ago. Like he got socked in. And I've been socked in up there too, but I've been up Utopia so many times that I knew the route. So I could find my way down, but he got sucked in and he couldn't find his way down. He was trying different things in the fog, and he said he kept getting cliffed out, so he'd have to go back to the top. And then eventually it just got dark on him. So he realized, well, he's got to spend the night up there. And this was in July, I believe. And he said it got really, really cold.
Oh, sure.
But, again, that's where, having a warm sweater and jacket, that helps a lot. It could save your life.
Save your life, absolutely. And when you talk about being socked in, I used to be a guide up in the North Shore Mountains in Vancouver, BC. And the fog would get so thick. Well, you're basically in a cloud. You couldn't even see your feet.
Yep.
So that's what getting socked in can be like. So even if you know the route like the back of your hand, imagine you can't see your feet. Yeah. And I used to have to guide a whole class of people with that. Yeah. And this was pre-GPS, so I would I'd take a bearing with my compass, write it on duck back paper, and just pray to God that I'm going the right way, right? But that can be really scary stuff for sure.
Well, speaking of the North Shore, you want to talk about a wake up moment. Well, when I was younger, I had a fair bit of summertime mountain experience, but not so much in the winter. And I went to hike the Twin Lions hike.
Yep.
North of Vancouver there.
Yeah.
I did that the year before in the summer, and I was there in April, and I thought, let's see if I can do it again. Well, there was still like 4 or 5 feet of snow on that trail, but it was fairly well packed. So I was just following the footprints, walking along, and looked like, there's a big depression up ahead there. And I went and looked into it, and it was about 200 meters straight down. Somebody had partially fallen through. You could see where their elbows hit.
Oh my, yeah.
It was on a cornice. And I was just following the footprints. I didn't realize I was walking on a cornice. I was suspended in the air by the snowpack. And I think that's the trail. Was it just a couple of years ago? There's a group of 4 or 5 hikers. I think that was the same trail. They were standing on a cornice. They didn't know it. The one guy stepped off. I guess they just thought they were on solid ground to try and get a better cell phone reception. And he said he turned around, his buddies were gone. The whole thing broke away and killed all of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember hearing about that?
I didn't know about that one, but I certainly know what cornices are like. And you think you're on sure footing. You think you got snow and rock under you, but you're actually sitting on a curled lip over the edge of space, right? Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those wake up moments.
Yeah. Do you got a mountain bucket list?
Peaks I would like to do?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, what's on it?
Well, this summer, a little more virgin peaks again. Nigel, down near the Columbia ice fields. That's been on the radar. Was thinking about Wilcox. Or not Wilcox, sorry. Wilson, Mount Wilson near the Saskatchewan River crossing.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's been one of the very few mountains where I did a little quick online search to see what it was about.
Cheating.
Well, of sorts, because I didn't know what I was getting into. And there's one really prolific scrambler on there named Stephen Song.
Yeah.
He scrambled thousands of peaks around here. And he mentioned that was the longest day on a mountain that he's ever had.
Wow.
And it involves glacier travel and everything else. So it's kind of, maybe there's an alternate route. He went up the southern side.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I wonder if you can get up something from the north side.
Yeah.
I like to have a look. And one of the peaks that's been on my radar for a long time is Temple Mountain in Banff.
Okay, yeah.
So I was going to try, not last year, but the year before, but I lost the weather window.
Yeah.
I was waiting for September because that area is really busy, and actually there's no longer vehicle access to Moraine Lake. So you have to even get reservations to get on the bus there, apparently.
Okay.
So it could make scrambling that mountain a little tricky.
Yeah, there's no real early start for you.
It's been on the radar for a while.
Any thoughts of like something out of country? Like heading into Europe or anything like that?
Well, all the mountaineering movies I've been watching, it's like some of the bigger peaks I
Yeah.
might really consider. Aconcagua in South America.
Okay.
Apparently that's basically just a scramble. It's a walk up.
Yeah.
Maybe McKinley.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
That's a big one. Yeah, that's definitely hardcore mountaineering.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was thinking, geez, those Himalayan peaks, like, wouldn't it be nice to do at least one above 8,000 meters?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm just dreaming.
Yeah, there's so many to do here. I contacted Robert a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember this, but my son and I got in real trouble on Wilcox.
Yeah, I remember
And
seeing that post.
I called you afterwards, and you sort of pointed out where we went wrong. But there's an example of the guidebook, just has a little red line. You kind of go on here, but small scale photograph in black and white. So you're taking your chances, and then you start following the cairns. And that's bad because people make cairns all over the place. So we were following cairns, and it took us to the chute all the way up to the summit, like this very steep chute. And we're like, well, this must be it. It looks pretty deadly. So we started climbing up this chute, and I thought, man, if you kick a rock free, it's going to kill a guy coming down on this thing. And I told my son, we're taking a short rope and some climbing gear. And he said, nah, Dad, that's too heavy. I'm like, no, if you're climbing with me, we're going to take some backup gear. And, thank God we had it, because by the end of the afternoon, we were hanging on a cliff. It felt like half a kilometer of space under our heels. And, I've got a sling around like your water bottle there, and two of us clipped into it so we don't fall to our death. We were way off whatever that route was, but the cairns had led us there. And then my son is like, Dad, I think we're close to the summit. I said, no, we're turning around. We're going back. He goes, Dad, I'm an adult. Let me climb to the top. I'm like, Joel, if you die, I will never forgive myself. And so he's like, I can do it. And so I'm unclipping him and watching my son climb up. If you're into climbing, it would have been like, 5, 7-ish, which isn't super hard, but it was super chossy. Like, stuff was pulling out. You couldn't hang on to anything. And watching him disappear over the top of the cliff, thinking, if he comes flying down, I will never forgive myself. So a little bit later, he's like, Dad, I made it to the top. So what was I going to do? So now we're free soloing up this thing, and we made it to the top, high five. Now we had to come down all of this, right? But I remember talking to you afterwards, and yeah, we were way off route. But there's a good example of something that shouldn't kill you, should be just a gentle scramble, but can be life or death if you get off route, right?
Well, actually, I was just going to point out while you were talking, this can be an issue with scramblers too, is what we call summit fever, where you reach a certain point, you're so close, and it's just like, no matter what, you got to get that summit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even if your common sense is telling you probably shouldn't, like this ice, avalanches, dying daylight, whatever.
Yep.
But people do get that,
Sure.
So,
Be honest with yourself. Yeah.
Well, one of the movies I seen when I was in Kelowna was called Broad Peak. True life story about this Polish climber. He had one go at Broad Peak is in the Himalayas. It's one of the 14 peaks above 8,000 meters on the planet here. He had a attempted winter ascent of it. He didn't quite make it. He thought he made it, but it turned out he didn't. So when he was given the second offer at another attempt of a winter ascent, he took it. And I'm not sure if I give away the ending, but it didn't end well. I've seen that. It's just like I shouldn't say that I don't get that way, but I'm usually more practical. It's like, well, I'm by myself. It's not a limited amount of daylight, especially in the winter. So should I really go for that summit or not? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll just decide, okay, it's time to turn around.
There's no shame in turning back, especially with my younger boys. You know, you're in your 20s, you're invincible. I always tell them, like, there's no shame in turning back. Come back alive and try again on a better day, right? Reconfigure and go for it. Yeah.
Well, the ultimate goal of scrambling is not to attain a mountain peak. It's to live to try again.
It's to live to tell the tale, yeah.
And, you know, I always tell people, well, you can get to the summit if you think you can, but you're only halfway home at that point.
That's
Even
right.
If you might have done the hard half,
Yeah.
but you're still only halfway home
Well, and as you said, most of the accidents happen on the way home.
on the descent.
Yeah.
Did you ever try the mountaineering side of things? Like roping in or anything like that?
Well, I've never had any rope experience. I actually have no climbing gear experience either. Like as far as technical ropes and pitons and
Yeah.
Jumars and that type of thing. No, actually I don't. But I've done a little bit of freestyle climbing.
Okay.
Like, you know, you're doing, like Scott was saying, 5.7 or
Right.
better without ropes or gear.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's sometimes you have to do that when you're scrambling
Yeah.
to reach the peak.
Is
And-
that was that something that you're like I want to train for at any point? Or you're like, no, that's like a little outside my comfort zone? Or
Well, I probably should at some point.
yeah.
You know, because like I said, you know, I've been in a few spots where if you fall, you die.
Yeah.
You know, and you're acutely aware of that. So.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was with a climbing partner and I was fixed into a rope and could set anchors, well, I could fall, but I won't die.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite mountain?
Well, I love all the mountains, but probably the one local peak I do quite regularly is Mount Luscar. Like,
Okay.
it's not very difficult. It's not very far from town.
Yeah.
There's no real exposure anywhere on it. It's just a
What
nice
makes it
walk.
your favorite?
Good question. I don't know. I just like it.
And then are you like primarily doing this solo?
Pretty well, yeah.
Yeah.
Hiking partners are actually incredibly difficult to get up here.
Yeah.
You know, down south, someone posts online, oh, looking for a hiking or scrambling partner, and
Right.
there's no problem getting one.
Yeah.
Up here, if I waited until I got a scrambling partner, I would practically never scramble.
Right.
It's just too difficult. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes people will, that I've scrambled with before, will shoot me a message and, okay, I'm ready to go out.
Yeah.
But lately, no such luck.
Yeah. Just got to go. One of the things we've started doing on the podcast is Would You Rather. So I got a couple. You got one too, Scott?
I
Good.
got a couple too. So
Okay.
yeah, you go first there, George. Yep.
Okay, I was working on a couple I was thinking these today. I'm like, okay, climbing would you rather questions. Okay, so here's one. Would you rather climb a mountain where you have to navigate through a dense forest or climb on a rocky open slope?
Well, scramblers typically go for the rocky open slopes.
That's your move.
Easier
Yeah.
going, yeah. Especially, we had a big windstorm in Jasper here a few years ago, and at one point, walking through the forest around here wasn't too bad. Now it can be really, really difficult.
Yeah.
When I was on Mount Greenock last winter here, I got socked in and was a little bit off route. So instead of descending the way I came up, I went directly down the western side to the Vine Creek Trail. Well, it went really well for pretty well to the mountain's base. And then I think I was only a kilometer from the trail, and I hit all this deadfall. It was just piled up, and it took about an hour and a half
Yeah.
to cover a kilometer of ground.
Yeah.
So the forest, yeah, it's
If you can avoid it.
it can be tricky.
Yeah. You on the same page with that one then, Scott?
I'm totally on the same page. My wife and I did a multi-pitch climb on Roche Perdrix up the face, like up the chimney route.
Okay. The
And
North
that,
Ridge.
yeah, and that was exciting. That was fantastic. We made it to the top in the sunshine, victory. And then we took the wrong route down.
Oh.
We didn't take the first way down. We went further on the ridge and came down. And we got stuck in super steep forest. We had to rappel through forest. The deadfall, we were wearing shorts. The bugs were out. There was bear crap everywhere. And make a long story short, we ended up bushwhacking till midnight to make it. And I could only hear my way back to the highway. I could hear the trucks. and found my way back to the highway. But miserable. So we went from, just this glorious climb to a horrible descent through the forest. So bushwhacking ain't fun.
I've seen that. When you're coming off that North Ridge, there is only one possible descent route off that. And I was up there. I started going up Roche Padre, and I ran into these two other hikers. They were a young couple. And apparently they hadn't been up there before. So they went up with me. And when I got to the top, I sat down and had a little bite to eat. And I thought, like typically on a scramble, you meet up with somebody, you join up, and you don't. It's like mountaineering rules. You don't typically leave your party behind, right?
Yeah.
Usually stick together. But while I was eating, they decided to descend on their own. I figured, well, they came up, so they know the route. They'll be okay. So finished eating and went down, and I didn't encounter them anywhere. And I was descending really fast. And then I thought, okay, well, if they're not back at their vehicle by the time we get down, or if their vehicle is still there, then I know they got lost. And when I got back to the trailhead, their vehicle was still there.
Oh, no.
So I knew they walked down that North Ridge and they missed the descent point.
Yeah.
So I drove to the Jasper East Park gate, gave them the license number of the vehicle, and said exactly what happened. I think they missed their descent route, and maybe keep an eye on them to see if they make it off the mountain safe.
Yeah.
And gave them my phone number, and never heard from them. But apparently the next day I stopped in to check, and they said, oh yeah, they made it off the mountain fine.
Maybe they went down the same hellish route that I did.
Could be.
Yeah.
But, yeah, a lot of those mountains, there's only typically one way, practical way up or down it.
Yeah.
Well, Roche Miette, unless you're going up the ravine on the western side, there's basically only one way to get off the mountain without rappelling gear.
Oh, and there's all sorts of horror stories of people who get off route on Roche Miette, and you can get onto that massive wall, and life or death.
Get into trouble pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I got another one then.
Okay.
Would you rather be able to fix any piece of gear or be able to identify every plant and animal? Fix any piece of gear or identify any plant or animal?
Well, I tell you just naturally accumulate more knowledge. It's kind of like you see an interesting flower and then you wonder, oh, what is that flower? Then you go look it up after. So once you do, then it's stuck there,
Yeah.
So, and the same thing with animals. You come across a certain type of track and, I wonder what that is. And you look it up and, oh, yeah, it's a wolf or bear or whatever. And you just naturally accumulate knowledge. So fixing gear, well...
How handy are you with fixing gear?
Well, here's the strange thing. Like, I'm kind of a minimalist.
Okay.
Like, I'll always carry traction aids in the winter, but I never use them. So, some people use crampons.
Yeah.
I don't. I just kind of prefer to rely on the grip of my boots.
Yeah.
And, that scares some people.
Yeah.
But if you're in a situation where you could slide down the snowbank to your death, well, then I carry an ice axe for self-arrest. But the number of times that I've ever had to do that is zero. I've never had to self-arrest. It could happen.
Yeah.
It's just like with a helmet. A rock could come and whack me on the head. Well, it's never happened. But still, usually if there's rockfall danger, I'll wear a helmet.
Gotcha.
You know what's weird about that, though? I used to rock climb. I was a climber in the 80s and 90s. None of us wore helmets. Nobody wore a helmet.
Yep.
And now it's unthinkable not to climb without one. And you know what? In the 80s and 90s, I never once hit my head. And I did wicked falls, wicked climbs. And as soon as I started wearing a helmet, guess what? I'm smacking my head all the time. So I think it makes you climb differently when you don't have that freedom. Same with the skiing. Yeah. I am saying wear a helmet. If you're listening, wear a helmet. But you do climb differently. Something psychologically happens there.
Yeah. That was the same thing. Like taking it back to like the construction site is like guys that aren't wearing hard hats are never bashing themselves as soon as they put a hard hat on. Then they're slamming into stuff,
smacking into things. Yeah. I got another. Would you rather here?
Okay.
Would you rather sprain your ankle on a mountaintop solo and have to get down, That's one option. Or get lost and spend 2 days in the bush.
Well, I always prefer the non-injury route. So I would pick the forest any day because I know I could light a fire,
Yeah.
and stay warm. You can survive easily for 2 days without food.
2 days, yeah.
So, yeah, no question at all there.
Yeah.
Oh, but on the previous topic, I've been kind of dying to say this all night. If I can bring it up, we keep mentioning bears and bear spray. I know hundreds of outdoor people, and I'm the only person I know that has ever actually had to use bear spray to stop a charging bear. But every single person I know, including me, has had an accidental discharge with pepper spray and sprayed themselves.
Yeah. Okay, well, you're going to have to tell us a story. What happened with when did you have to use it, and how did it go?
Well, actually, only twice in my life have I been charged by a bear. And statistically speaking, it's always a black bear. Grizzlies rarely bother people, but they seem to get all the press. It seems like people seem to think grizzlies are the nasty. No, statistically speaking, it's black bears that do most of the human attacks, And in my case, I was charged once at the base of Mount Solomon near the Black Cat Ranch. And the 2 dogs I was hiking with drove that bear off. I wasn't even carrying bear spray at that point. So actually, it was the only other time I was charged was when I was carrying bear spray. And at that point in my life, it was sometimes I carried it, sometimes I didn't. Or if I did, it was usually buried in my pack. Well, that was not too long after I got to Hinton here in 95.
Okay.
I went up Folding Mountain, the route from the highway. You go up the northern ridge to the summit. And my very first time up there, and I did have my bear spray, but it was buried in my pack, and got to the summit and was coming back. And it's about the 3 km mark when you're sitting on top of that ridge overlooking the highway, and you start to descend steeply down the western side. Well, I was noticing all the bear scat on the way in, and my spray was in my pack. So unfortunately, I've noticed that when people carry bear spray, it's often typically, it's buried in the pack somewhere. It's like if you're going to have a bear encounter, it's going to happen in like split seconds.
Totally.
So have that spray handy. Don't have it buried in your pack like I did. But at least I did the smart thing, and I realized all the bear sign around, I pulled that out of my pack and put it on my hip. Well, that move probably saved my life because I was descending almost exactly halfway down. The trail drops steeply into this ravine. Well, there was a mother black bear and 2 cubs feeding there. And there was no wind. I was just kind of by myself walking quietly down the trail, not paying any attention. And then I heard a woof. And I looked up, and this mother black bear, her head popped out from this ravine. She looked at me, her head turned around, she barked twice, woof, woof. And then I'd seen these 2 cubs going up these trees behind her, and it's like, oh no. And then I swear to God, it was like I was a Wild West gunslinger. I had my bear spray on my hip, I pulled it out, and it's kind of like your mind is playing tricks on you at that point, because the adrenaline's starting to go, and like time seems to like really slow down. And I swear to God, there was a sticker on this bear spray that said replace 3 years from date. And it was like his bear spray was like 8 or 9 years old. And just like slowly pulling this bear spray out, very slowly pulling that safety pin on it.
Yep.
And I got a comment. I've heard from 2 people who were bothered by a bear. They pull out the bear spray. Well, they forgot to pull that safety pin.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Trying to shoot
happens
this bear
all the
spray,
time.
and it wouldn't come out.
Yeah.
So I pulled the safety pin, and at this point, I don't even think it was 2 seconds from when I heard that first woof to the charge. Instantly, that bear jumped over that ravine, was coming at me full speed, with her mouth wide open, and she was growling at me. And, I hit the bear spray. And I like to point out to people that, you don't aim that bear spray where the bear is. You aim it in front of you where it's going to be.
Yeah.
So she hit that cloud, and as soon as she did, she just took a dead stop, and she skidded about 3 or 4 feet on the ground to almost where you are right now, like 5 feet from me, 6 feet from me.
Wow.
No. And she sniffed the air and she went, "Oof," and she shook her head. She backed up in places, but her cubs were still behind her up in the tree.
Yeah.
So I cannot honestly tell you how long we had a standoff there, because typically the standard can of bear spray is good for 4 to 6 seconds of action time. That's it. And I couldn't tell you how long I sprayed that. Did I deplete it? Was there any left? If she came charging again, would I be able to use it again? I didn't know. I just realized, this is real.
Yeah.
And this bear means business. This is no bluff charge. She was just defending her cubs, for goodness sakes. But,
Yeah.
So we had a standoff. I cannot tell you how long it was. It could have been 2 minutes, but it felt like it was at least half an hour,
Yeah.
I was sitting there, and she was woofing at me and slapping the ground with her paws, and I was yelling at her, just let her know, well, I'm a threat. I'm not anything to be fucked around with either,
Yeah.
So we had a standoff like that for, like I said, no idea.
Yeah.
The heart's kind of going.
Well, you got lucky on the 9-year expired bear can, because I've detonated a lot of expired bear spray. Most of them are good. I did 2 last winter. Like, I've had some that are like 12, 17 years old, and they lose the pressure. People forget, they don't lose the pepper. The pepper's there forever, but the pressure in the can, so you can spray an expired can and it'll dribble down your hand like slop and burn your skin, but it's not coming out with any gusto. So yeah, you got fortunate there, buddy, because had that sort of dribbled down your hand, you'd have been in big trouble.
Seasoned.
Yeah. See, exactly. Seasoned.
Yeah, exactly. Cayenne pepper Robert for supper. It's interesting. You mentioned with the bear. I've had to pull bear spray a few times, but I found every time I do, the bears sense something, and I take the safety off immediately. And there's something about my stance, like they're really good at reading body language.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've gone from kind of being this prey species to, okay, this guy's
Predator.
in charge. They kind of look at you different. They know something's changed.
Yep.
So that's sometimes all you need is that extra confidence. But yeah, pull the safety off as soon as you see the bear. That's
pretty
the
good
rule.
advice.
Yeah.
But that's what I've discovered. I've hundreds of bear encounters, black and grizzly, and it's those first couple seconds that are crucial. I tell people, if you're afraid of that bear and you act like prey, well, you're going to get treated like prey.
Yep.
So don't talk to the bear. Don't yell at the bear. Or people are blowing whistles. Don't. That could be interpreted as something aggressive. Just be perfectly neutral. Don't be afraid. Don't start running away. Never run from a bear.
Stand your ground. Yeah.
Just stand there. Wait. Like I said, sometimes the bear doesn't even know you're there, and he can just turn around and leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Body language is
Body
everything.
language is absolutely crucial.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So don't act like prey. Don't act like predator either. You could make them aggressive, especially if they're defending cubs or food source.
Totally.
So try and be as neutral as you can, and don't be afraid.
Yeah, be neutral, but be strong. I think that's, stand your ground. And standing your ground is a message in wildlife biology that you are a tough species, because you don't stand your ground if you're prey.
Exactly.
But if you stand your ground, they're suddenly thinking, okay, this guy's got something I don't know. He's stronger than I think he is, Yeah, it's interesting how that works. That's how Wolverines can stand their ground with a pack of wolves, right? But it's all body language.
What was I going to say now? I lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, the only time I can get cautious. This is one of the very few things I fear in the backcountry, is not running into grizzlies or black bears or cougars. I fear running into a fresh carcass.
Right.
Because there will be a grizzly on it, guaranteed.
Yeah.
You know, if there isn't one already, there very soon will be. You leave the area, because that is one of the very few times when this grizzly will typically get aggressive. And all your bear spray and trying to act dominant is not going to mean anything.
No. Yeah.
So occasionally, you know, I use my nose. If I smell something dead and rotten, okay, maybe it's time to go somewhere else.
Time to get away. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, do you have another would you rather? Was that the?
I'm good.
Yeah. Robert, thanks for coming on tonight.
Yeah, no
You're
problem. It was always
a wealth
very
of knowledge.
interesting.
I gotta go check. I know I've seen your posts on the Hinton hikers and outdoor enthusiasts. What's the next mountain on your list then? What do you got coming up in the next?
Oh my
month or
goodness!
so?
Well, my vehicle broke down on me, so I'm kind of my wings are clipped.
Right.
I really want to go out desperately, but
Yeah.
looking for a vehicle.
Okay,
before
if
I can
anyone
go
has a
out.
vehicle in the Hinton area, get a hold of Robert.
Let's go scrambling.
Yeah, let's go scrambling. Yeah, exactly. Let's go scrambling. Scott Sunderwald at Northern Rockies Bushcraft. You can track down Scott there. Scott, you got any scrambles planned for the summer or anything? Any mountain climbs?
Oh
on
yeah,
the list?
always doing some sort of scramble. Not quite as hardcore as Robert, but he inspires me. I'm probably heading out in the bush this weekend. And is it still winter camping in March? I guess it sort of is, but
Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
supposed to be chilly.
might do a little bit of a survival lean-to with a fire. We're not quite sure.
Nice.
Shoot something, eat something.
Yeah.
Get
The
eaten.
usual.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, guys. If you want to leave us a review, that'd be great. Tell your friends. Send us an email for you can ask Scott questions. You can answer the podcast question of the week at wildernesswave@outlook.com. The best way to do that. And once again, thanks, Robert. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate
Yeah, no
it.
problem. Interesting.
We'll
Good
talk to
stuff.
you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Wilderness Wavelength.